good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. How are you all today? Oh, bummer, crows, yeah. Yeah, it's a bad time to order paint. It's a bad time. I know we all love to have our paint right when we want our paint. Such a bad time. Not enough coffee. Yeah, Growly, I feel it. I feel it. 1999. How screwed up was that in my life then? Wow. Pretty screwed up, actually. Pretty screwed up. But I got over it. I got better. Yeah. Indeedy. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't want to think about how many years have passed since that time. Right? Let's not. David pointed out that I was turning 50 this year last night. I'm like, oh, the pain. No, honey, don't point that out. Oh, dear. But yes. I hope y'all are having a good Thursday. I had a very good Wednesday, so I'm hoping that Thursday will be very good too. I'm contacting a cover artist, a prospective cover artist today, I think, for my book. I really like her work, so we'll see. We shall see. And she's not quite as expensive as some of the others I was looking at. Yeah, never order paint while under the influence when you don't realize it's February and everything is still frozen. I think never shop. It's isn't there a maxim never go to Amazon when you're drunk? Don't Amazon and drink, or don't drink in Amazon. It's you just should not go to any online shop when you are under the influence, because you will end up with several $100s poorer. I have totally impulse bought busts under a bit tipsy, but now I don't drink anymore, so now I'm safe. NMM chainmail. Yep, we're gonna do it. It's easy. It's a simple little chainmail bit, so it's actually a pretty good thing to do. NMM chainmail is actually really, really, really easy. You can make it harder. You can do it to the nines like we're going to do it today. But the basis of NMM chainmail is super, super easy. Yeah, exactly. No paint rule. Yep. Hello, Agent Marvel. Woo! All right. Well, let's do it. Let's get it on. Let's see here. And I was using some ash and blue for this, for the fur. So I'm going to continue that with mixing my silver. I'm not going to go more than a hint of it, though, because of the... Although, actually, you know what? Let's do something else. Now that I'm thinking about this. For contrast, let's actually use something that's more let's do rust colors on this. Let's... where's my anchor? Where's anchor? Rusted anchor. I love rusted anchor. Let's do NMM chainmail and then do a little bit of rust at the top. How about that? Yeah, retail therapy, it's a thing. Yeah, and the reason I'm going this way, normally I would use the blue for sure, except that the armor is already against the bluish gray, and so I don't want to double down on that. It would be less contrast, not more. So I am going to use this for the rust color, but to mix in to the rest of it, I think I'm actually going to go with a bit of our saddle brown, which was kind of our starting color here on our wood. Just a little bit. I just want a little bit of brown or something in there. And if we're going rusty and dirty with the chainmail, which we should, this is a little more than just a hanging flap at this point. Then you want to mix a bit of brown into your gray. You always, and this is something that I already did, but Sergio also mentioned it strongly in his class. When you are doing steel NMM, mix a color into your gray. Doesn't matter what the color is. Well, except that, here I'm using color theory. So I'm alternating warm and cooler. And so I want something that's different from this blue-gray. So I'm choosing a brown. But just mix something in. It doesn't, and the color doesn't matter. It should probably be a color that's either on your figure or in the environment. But it's not meant to actually change the color of the gray so much. It does change the color of the gray a tiny bit, but not enough that you'd notice. When you look at your gray after you add the other color, you still want to be able to see it as gray. It should still look gray. But it should be a more complicated gray than just... Because this is a very flat gray. Cloudy gray, which is my standard for steel NMM, is... it's just black and white. It's no other pigments. So it tends, if anything, it tends toward a little bit cooler because the black pigment is coal black, carbon black, and that's a colder black. It tends to produce a more bluish tone. but it's still very flat. If you do an entire figure, like a knight with this, it will look like an illustration. It will have no depth to it. It will not look real. So when you're doing this, I'll use 5 drops of just the cloudy gray, and then I'm just going to grab, I don't want to use a red, I want to use a rust color, and rusted anchor is a good rust color. Just to make sure you guys know. And actually, red is one of the colors you should be wary of adding into your gray, just because it can go pink. But, you know, if you add a tiny bit, no one will probably notice. So sometimes I'll just do that little dribble onto the cap, and then I'll grab a little bit from that, and I'll mix it in. And I just want to see a tiny shift in the color. There we go. Perfect. So now it's not just a flat illustration gray. That's what I want. I want something I want some little color into the gray that will make it not be just black and white. Where is my water? There it is. I'm only going to put 1 drop of water in there because I'm going to go over the top of this. And this may look a bit close to the fur behind it, and we may need to shade a bit more behind the fur, like right where the chainmail goes up against the fur. And that would be absolutely realistic as well, since whatever goop is catching regularly in this chainmail probably also is caked on behind it up against the fur, because Ogre. So even just thinking about how realism would work. You remember the stream, Pendrake, huh? I'm probably also going to use this color to base coat this little stone here. Just again to repeat colors around the model. And I'm going to just start out with the straight up gray. I'm going to put 1 coat on with this. Then I'm going to start doing maybe some wet blending. Or layering, up to you. But I'm going to start layering my darks and lights in over the whole thing. So this is key. You're not highlighting every little link and shading every little link of the chainmail. This is why putting a wash on the chainmail can give you a result, but it might not be quite right. And sometimes it doesn't look quite right. And you're just like, well, why doesn't this look right? And it's because you have the same level of shading over the entire thing. And that wouldn't necessarily be so. So just like with other highly textured surfaces, the point here is to get general highlights and shadows blocked in accordance with where the light would hit. And then to go back and maybe touch up and pick up some little details. So we're going to let that set for a second. And we're going to go over and base coat this stone while we wait. And I'm going to mix up some other colors. It's our little rock. And since I added brown as the color I added to the gray, this is actually a good stone gray color. But yeah, even with my neutrals, I like to repeat things here and there. I just think it makes for a more homogeneous, a model that looks like it belongs together. There are no jarring notes to kind of distract you when you look at it. Accent colors are a different matter, but even the accent color needs to be repeated around the figure. Sometimes you can get away with one spot of a different color if it's somewhere central and near the face, like a necklace. So like if you were working with a green and purple paint scheme and you had a necklace on the model with a big gem and you decide to do that gem in orange to complete your green, orange, purple secondary triad, you could get away with just having that one spot of orange as long as it's like central, as long as it draws attention to the important part of the figure, which usually is the face expression, all that center there, because everybody looks at the face and eyes first. Every human. That's where we orient first when we look at a creature or a humanoid. Alrighty, I am going to get some other colors mixed up. I want a liner color or a dark. I'm going to grab my walnut for this. You could use a lot of different colors for this. Actually, maybe I'll do rogue shadow instead. If I want it more subtle, I would do the rogue shadow. Yeah, let's do the rogue shadow. I don't necessarily need this to be really harsh and overwhelming. So I'll grab rogue shadow. But I need to be able to do some darks. I'm going to mix this up. with a bit of, not a lot of water. I'm going to be doing wet blending to start. I'm actually not going to do a wash on this chainmail at all. That is my goal, to not do a wash. Because that's how everybody does chainmail, and that's not how we're going to do chainmail. So I'm going to mix my Rogue Shadow 4 to 2. So 2 to 1 paint to water. And I'm going to mix up my pure white. And we're essentially going to do a three tone NMM, but since we're planning to do a lot of mixing, kind of wet blending, I only need these 3 colors. That's the thing with wet blending. When you're doing layering, you look at maybe doing a pentad, right? But if you're wet blending, then when you do your mixes of this color and this color, you get an intermediate shade here. And when you do this color and this color, you get another intermediate shade here. So you essentially have a pentad. It's just you're doing it with wet blending. And so because you're wet blending each 2 colors, you only need 3 overall. Now, you can decide, as we've been talking about a little bit on my Discord lately, you can use an off-white for this, like a yellowy white. A lot of painters, and actually I wanted to talk about that a little bit, a lot of painters these days seem to be sliding more in the direction, especially in Europe, and this has been a thing for a while, by the way. This was a thing 20 years ago in painting, where they never use pure white. They actually use an off-white, usually a creamy or a yellowy white, often ice yellow, something like that. And they'll use that as their highest highlight color to mix all their highlights, except for like NMM, because you have to have that pure white when a surface is shiny. So that's why I'm not going with the off-white here. I could go with the off-white and then just come in at the end with pure white. I'm just going to go do it this way. Especially because we've got such a strong light, golden light on stuff so far. But if I decide to go that way, I decide to go that way. We'll see. I'm more likely, though, in my paint style, I'm more likely to block this in. And then if I need this golden kind of light, I'm more likely to glaze a little bit like I did on the blue. So be aware that that's a thing. The theory behind it is that actually you don't see pure white in nature. Sunlight itself is kind of a yellowish white. And that's why people will highlight everything with yellowish white. But when it comes to shiny, in order to get the contrast and the illusion of shininess, you have to use pure white. Or something really, really close to it. So that's the theory of what that kind of thing is. I used to do it, and when I started getting good at painting and like talking to other painters, it was around the year we were just mentioning, Party Like It's 1999. It was 1999, 2000, and everybody used linen white as a highlight. Nobody used pure white. So that's why I say this thing. These things that come around in painting, they come around in cycles. And it's funny because once you've been in the hobby for a while and talking to people for a while, you'll recognize them. You'll be like, oh yeah, we used to do that back in 06 or whatever. It's just like I see like the CMYK style of painting come in and out of vogue. I see highlighting with yellow white coming in and out of vogue. I see oil painting coming in and out of vogue. It's like it all just like it has this great cycle, and it's really funny to me sometimes. And interesting too, right? Because this is the kind of thing that newer painters have never heard of before. And so they're like excited about it and it's cool. But almost everything owes its start to, traditional art at some point. So this is an interesting shadow to use, guys, because it's purplish. Rogue Shadow definitely has a touch of purple to it if you look at it there. And this is actually pretty good. Having a purpley shadow with a yellow light is actually right on where we should be. So I'm feeling good about that. So we've got a couple options here. We can just paint on our shadows. And this is a mixture of the gray and the purpley Rogue Shadow. Or we can do a wet blend. So it really doesn't matter much. All of these, by the way, are thinned 2 to 1. So they're all a little bit thin. And the fact that I've thinned them means that I can pretty much layer with them and do a little bit of wet blend, and they will go together really well. If you wanted to do straight up wet blending, you could leave them at more like 4 to 1, but I actually like a thinner wet blend these days. I think that it makes the colors kind of smush together a little bit easier. It does mean that you have to like really double down if you want a dark shadow and really, really add that in. So like so. Let me get close. So essentially what we're going to be doing is just doing a little bit of layering and wet blending on this surface. And I will mostly I'm starting with my shadow with a 50-50 mix. I'll just mix a little bit here on my palette. Almost like I'm using a wet palette. I'll just do a little bit at a time. I'm looking at details. There's definitely kind of this section is back in a fold a little bit. And then when I look at the rest of this, I've got maybe a little bit of variation here. So there's definitely like areas where you could just say, you know, this is bulging out. This is more in shadow. I'm going to paint kind of that intermediate shadow over those areas. Definitely there'd be a shadow underneath this belt. So I'm going to also bring that shadow up right under that. And I'm not really blending it in, but if I want, I can grab a little bit of my mid-tone gray and just kind of smush those together. You can choose to do, if you want more of a blended effect, you can choose to reach for that. But mostly here, we're acting as if this is cloth. We're totally ignoring the texture, and we're just looking at, you know, what parts of this are kind of maybe hanging down out of the light a bit. What parts are in shadow, you know, where's, if there are folds in this, where are they? Like there's definitely a crease there that's darker, or that should be darker. If you see recessed areas where the links are broken, you want to block those in really dark, like that. Over here on this side, where everything is darker, we want to make sure we're being consistent. So wherever our highlight cuts off up here, that's where we should go into shadow here. So you see we've got the shadow on the fur here, and then we got shadow on the chainmail here. So use your eyes, be consistent more or less with what has come before, and don't worry about painting the links yet. Just go over everything. We're actually going to be we're going to do very little painting of any links. We're going to let a lot of our shading stand for itself and use pop highlights instead. You really do not need there to be a really dark shadow with all of these links. You just need enough. So I'm doing a little stipple of my dark over that. Bring in my gray a little bit. I'm going to do a wet blend. I'm going to do a mixture of gray and white now. And I'm going to be putting that kind of generally over areas that might get light. But again, I'm brushing it lightly over the surface, but I'm not trying to side brush or dry brush. I'm just trying to hit the area I think would be lighter, which is working pretty well. And if I see any real deep, like I did there with that hanging area where it felt like these links were definitely hanging separately from here where I went in with the dark. If I see big holes, I can come in and hit those with my rogue shadow if I want to accentuate them. But there's really just a few of those areas where I would want to. Got to be careful with it too. You don't want to get too dark. If you get a little too dark, just bring your brush back kind of damp. And I've got another dark over here. I also want to, as I mentioned earlier, add some dirt kind of implied behind this loincloth now. So I want to bring a darker shadow right behind it. I have a shadow. You can see it right here. But I feel like it needs to be a little bit more. This is filthy, and I think it would be dirtier. So I do need a darker shadow right here, where these links are separated off from there. So pay attention to your sculpt, kind of look at it. I'm gonna just accentuate the shadow down here now that I have my liner. So much harder line here. Now this part's in the light, so I won't need as big of a shadow. There is a shadow because of this big tongue overhanging, but I'm not going to sit and put a real hard shadow on this side because the light's coming from this direction. I'm going to bring in this nice and dark though. Make sure I'm not missing any areas. I can paint the underside dark. All right. So right away, that's looking okay. And right. But because of atmospheric discoloration, like the way that the sun filters, that's why the sun appears to be a yellowish cast, or warmer cast, I should say. And this is why we get golden hour. So at noon, where we have the most direct angle of the sunlight, that's when the sun is harshest and whitest. But in the morning and evening, you get golden hours. And so that's when you really have a yellow cast of the light. And intermediates between those two it's gonna start here and it's gonna get a little yellower, very yellow, right? And then sometimes even red, right, or pink for sunset, where everything is like really scattering along the horizon. So the misconception is honest, because often we do see sunlight as yellow, but it's because of the atmospheric filtering that we see it that way. That's why golden hour exists. And it's why when they tell you if you're going to put up like a dating profile or a Facebook picture of yourself, you should always have it taken like later in the afternoon, because the softer, more warm light is more complementary and it's less harsh, and it brings out less, like it'll bring out less of the flaws on your face, and the golden light is much gentler. But yeah, I mean, that's why prisms, like sunlight is, white light is all colors, and black absorbs all colors. White reflects all colors. So it is very intuitive, but the sunlight does still appear golden to us because of that. And you can look up golden hour and find out the actual physics, but roughly I believe that's it. So now I am going to hit exact things, but I'm doing it with my pure white, as you can see. But yeah, so if you want to take a nice picture of yourself or your family or whatever, do it in the afternoon. Later in the afternoon, better lighting. I found that out even with our dogs, when I was taking pictures of our dogs. So just little bits, and you could just use your side brush to get this, but this sculpted detail is actually pretty shallow, and I think it'd be hard to hit. And mostly I'm just focusing on the bottoms of each link. If you were working on a much larger model where the chainmail was very distinctly sculpted, you could hit each link like consistently. Here it's a little harder. I can see areas where the links are more or less consistently sculpted, like over here you can see the squiggle. Hello, lady. So as you can see, guys, this is super fast and easy. Like, it's not hard. I'm going to take my white and keep bringing it over. I'm going to go, though, just to a light gray over here. And not a full white. So when I do highlights on this side, I don't want them to be quite as strong. Just like when you're highlighting any surface, you don't want super strong highlights on other parts. You need some highlights, but you don't want them to be as bright. And then we're going to do some rust on this. But look at how fast this comes together. Like, this is not hard. Chainmail, NMM chainmail, easiest NMM ever. Like, yeah, you need brush control to hit these links, but if the chain is actually sculpted with, fairly deep detail, you actually can just use the side of your brush and hit these areas. You don't have to do what I'm doing and get each one. So anybody doing anything fun for Valentine's Day? David and I are going out to a Greek restaurant we like, that we tried one time last year and really enjoyed. Yes, exactly. And once we make this brass or bronze or whatever we decide to do with it, that will look really white because it'll be the lightest thing. And we're that in the bone here, and his teeth, once I block them in, they're going to be light too. So having this trio of really light items up here where the weapon, the threatening weapon is, and the face is, like ideally, like this is the important part of the figure, the most important part. Everything else is just icing. So having those light colors up here is a really good, like, focus attention kind of thing. It's why I'm not going to go too bright with these highlights on the chainmail. Oh yeah, lady, awesome. You've got a good one then. Yeah, I think we're doing it on Saturday or Sunday, whichever day we could get a better dinner time is what we did. And we're going to count it as Valentine's. Nice. David and I like excuses to go out to dinner at tasty restaurants we like. Alrighty. Hopefully he'll be done hacking by then. I can see why, like this, he's taking a long time to kick the plague. Like, it's coming up on 2 weeks that he's been sick. He's definitely feeling better, but it's totally tenacious. Ah, got it. Yeah, we didn't want to go out on Valentine's Day. We don't care about it that much. We just wanted an excuse to go out to a nice dinner. Because normally we try to save money and not go out quite so frequently these days. Just putting a few more bright pops of white here. Kind of backing off and looking at it, seeing if I like it. Maybe bring in a little bit of it here. I'm more likely to highlight around the edges because that's where the chainmail flaps would be likely to fly out and catch the light. And also his leg is going forward here. So, you could have some area there. Really all that matters is it looks right when you look at it next to everything else. But you just want little specks of white here. That's what the chainmail is really going to do. It's the light gray background you did here that is giving us the contrast across everything here. Now let's get our rust color mixed up. We're using Rusted Anchor, and we'll also use just a tiny touch of Cavalier Orange. Yeah, I have food allergies too. I just asked them to take it out. I aim for gluten-free, no tomatoes. That's and lots of restaurants around here are easy. Like going gluten-free is pretty easy. But when you have like a harsher allergy, then it can be hard, I know. Oh, nice, Quindy. That's really nice. Rusted Anchor is a fast palette color 29150. Cavalier Orange is a Pathfinder color 89509. Yeah, this Greek place pleasantly surprised me because they actually did not use tomatoes in everything, and were also largely able to adjust to gluten-free, so I had a good experience when I went there the first time. Yeah, he's on like day 11 or 12 now. I think he's going to test today, Cornico. He's still staying away from work just because he thinks that, because he's still coughing. He's got this residual cough and it would make his coworkers uncomfortable, so. Alrighty. So let's see how these colors work. Ah, peppers. Yeah. Yes. Oh, you're so correct. And people don't think that paprika is a pepper and they don't realize. Oh, I'm so sad, Julia. I'm so sad for you. That's a rough one. That's a rough one. As somebody who has food allergies or food reactions, I should say. It's not an allergy. It's my Crohn's trigger. But yeah, it's just so rough. It's just terrible. All right, so we've got our rusted anchor and we've got our Cavalier orange. Yes, I did mix a little rusted anchor into the Cavalier to dull it down. I'm also going to grab a little bit of white because I want some opacity here. Adding just a tiny touch of white into your orange will make it cover better. And it won't change the color very much. I just got a little bit of it on my brush and mixed it in. And now it's a little less transparent. That's good, lady. Yeah, this is, I mean, but David is like somebody who's like, he takes a long time to get over colds, whereas I haven't been sick in 5 years. And sure enough, I'm like still fine. I'm living with the plague, but the plague is like, you just stay over there. Yay for crazy good immune systems. That's what I say. I may have like rolled the lottery bad on the chronic disease front, but I rolled it really well on the immune system front. I'm just doing a quick bit of lining around this little string here. And I want to line around these little strings that are bringing the cords that are attached to this little stone. There. There we go. That's a little bit sharper. I can actually align the little stylized skull here. I did that very roughly indeed. So I'll come back and fudge it in with a little bit of gray. There, and I can come back and touch it up. Yep. Yeah, nightshades. Yep, nightshades and gluten. Wee, fun. Yep. I mean, a lot of restaurants at least are trying, but yeah, you can't guarantee. And that makes it hard and stressful to eat out. Like, totally. I'm sorry. Does your husband cook? Or your significant other? Because that can make it easier. If you have a significant other who can cook, they can at least make you special things. I made beef stew last night, but it did have black pepper in it. Otherwise, it didn't have any of those other things in it. But yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. Alrighty, let's get some of these rusty colors down. Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, and that's me too. Like, I learned how to cook because when I found out about my food sensitivities and went on weird diets, right? It does. It makes you it gets you very interested in cooking, right? And learning how to cook different things so that you can cook stuff for you that's safe. Or in your case, it made him want to cook stuff for you that's safe. So that's really awesome. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, at least you know what it is, Julia. That's the hard part with those dietary things, is when you haven't figured them out yet. For me, I have to avoid alcohol, although if it's cooked down, I can do it. But actual alcohol, drinking it, and tomatoes. I don't react to other nightshades. Tomatoes, though, are bad. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to grab this rusted anchor, and it's thinned down, as you can see. So mostly I'm going to just kind of be building up layers of it here, just like I did in my darks. And it's mostly going to be, I'm going to stipple it. I'm not going to make it very, it's going to be a little bit erratic. So like I might take it down more here. And I might keep it more limited like up here until I bring down another streak. Rust tends to go down in kind of streaks on surfaces. So if you can suggest that, it'll look more real. Because it doesn't just go in like a continuous wave over a surface. It goes down in drips. At least you can make your own mayonnaise. I don't know if there is paprika in the mayo I use. I use the avocado oil one from Sir Kensington's. It's super tasty. I'd be lost without it. All right, so we've got some of those nice, dirty, rusty color. Now, and you can seriously cake this on and make it, you know, cover a lot more of the surface if you want more rust. And how much you want is up to you. I can also do a little bit more down here where I feel like maybe it would just kind of have made its way through from the fur. So I'm just kind of like stippling it over this area and definitely making more of a streaking pattern over here. And as I build it up, it'll look more caked on. Oh yeah, oh I'm so glad I can still eat onions. Oh my god, I'd be lost without onions. It'd be like being allergic to garlic. All right, then we're gonna take our orange, our Cavalier orange that has a little bit of this rusted anchor and a little bit of white in it. And wherever I've caked on the red, the strongest is where the orange goes. And you don't want to cover over all of the rusted anchor. You just want to add some pops of more orangey intensity to where it's really thick. And if you lose a little bit of the rust color, then you need to go back and reapply it. You won't see big caked on sheets of rust like the orange on chainmail. You really only need little touches of it. But doing a couple of different colors in your rust, even if it's subtle, helps to just kind of sell the effect. Oh, yeah. Yep, I'm so sad that you guys cannot have onions and garlic. Like, I don't know, would it be worth living? I'm like, that's why I'm so careful with my diet. Is like, I'm like, you know what? I already can't eat like a few things. I really don't want to not be able to eat more things. So I'm really, really careful not to irritate my gut as much as I can. Like, I'm okay with this equilibrium gut. Let's just stick here. Let's make this our line in the sand. Just putting a little bit of white into my orange. Lets you do this more of a light, and then you can put your orange, your straight orange over that light color. Just like underpainting. And I want to bring in my red a little bit, my rusted anchor a little bit more. And you can keep kind of just building up these colors until you decide that you have rusted out enough. Until you've got that rust. And if you really want to, you can bring in a little bit more. We could also bring in more of a brown for dirt if we feel like our gray is a little bit too clean otherwise. So let's bring in a russet brown, which is my favorite general overall dirtying mechanism. I thought I had it hanging out over here. Here it is. Oh yeah. Yeah, teenagers and food allergies. Oh yeah, I avoid those sweeteners. Kornika for sure. I do monk fruit and stevia, and even then I've cut down on that a lot. All right, so I'm thinning up this russet brown. So here's our rusty colors. There we go. And I'm going to add some of this brown wherever I feel the gray is maybe too clean to convey the effect that I want. I don't want to make everything red. I don't want it to go pinkish. But I figured having a neutral brown would be good. Muddy brown would work too. Yeah, I cut out most dairy anyway. When we were trying to figure out like what my condition was, I cut out a lot. Most dairy. The only dairy I have now is like sheep's milk or goat's milk dairy in general. I make some exceptions sometimes now that I know that I don't react too badly to it, but yeah. Oh yeah, I use that. That's true, the asfoetida from Indian cooking. It's an Indian spice, and it does actually smell and taste. It gets that garlicky, oniony kind of bouquet. That's a good idea. And I should have known that. I have that in the house because of my Indian cooking. So I'm stippling this brown in over the gray a little bit to dirty it up, make it look more grungy. Don't want to hide all my highlights. Now, if you do have completely rusted over metal, then you would not have any bright white highlights, by the way, because that's from where links have been rubbed shiny again from abrasion. Either they've been rubbing against each other or they've just, that part is not rusted out yet. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with all of the food recommendations here. Ah, interesting. That's great. That's a great tip, Carrie Michael. Dang, Carrie Michael with the saves, you guys. The food saves. Thank you. That kind of life hack is worth so much when you're dietary limited. When you really, really just wish more than anything else you could eat the things you used to love. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Carrie Michael. There we go. So now I've dirtied up the surface. I still have gray, and I still have some highlights going on here. But we've done okay. I think I am going to highlight up the edges maybe a little bit more back here just to bring them out. That's looking pretty good, though. I'm just a little lactose intolerant, we figured out, but I still mostly avoid the dairy just because with Crohn's, you just want to avoid anything that could be inflammatory. And gluten and dairy are both inflammatory for some people, sometimes for most people, depending on who you talk to. So yeah, I just learned to do without it. I exist pretty happily overall, so. Highlighting around the edges here just a little bit with a light gray, not a white. Just to bring out a little bit of those details there. Because again, the edges are more likely to whip against things and rub up against things and have the rust break off. So you are within your rights to add an extra bit of highlighting to these edges to bring them out. When you're doing weathering, always think about logically what would happen. Logically, what areas might knock up against others and have the rust knocked off or rubbed off, But there we go, guys. We have rusty chainmail NMM loincloth. Now I'm tempted to actually do the same treatment up here on Mr. Skull and not go bronze with it because I'm just feeling like I've got all these colors out and I don't know that I really want to bring any yellow metal because he's so yellow. So let's do that. Let's just paint over. It will rust this out. It'll be fun. I'm just going to paint over a lot of my lining in there just because I did it kind of compulsively. That's my compulsive painting activities. I love to line. Oh, so you and I, fist bump, Carrie. Although I don't, my particular brand is like tentatively diagnosed. But we know it's an IBS of some sort and they think it's Crohn's, so. But as long as I'm not honestly a dumbass with my food choices, I've got it dialed in really well at this point. I know what I can eat. I know what I can't eat. And I don't really, like, dwell on the stuff I can't eat. I've got past it. I'm going to fill in the eyes of this dark brown to start with. Yeah, infusing is neat. And it's so easy to infuse oils with different flavors, too. It's cool that that doesn't, that makes it not effective. It allows you to get the flavor without getting the downside. I made a killer beef stew yesterday. David was in love with it. He had big hearts for eyes, just like the emoji, I swear. Like, that best way to a man is through his stomach thing totally works on David. Totally. Lucky me. But yeah, very tasty. Mushrooms, carrots, onions, garlic, red wine. Some herbs de Provence and bay leaf. Very simple, very tasty. Oh, and bacon. Always start your beef stews with bacon. Rusty metal in general now, because we're going to do the belt buckle. Ah. Pun intended. You don't. It's only when you get IBS and IBD people like hanging together that the butt jokes fly fast and furious. Oh dear. I take it's really supposed to be more for IBD, but I take a probiotic that seems to help. But they caught mine really early because of the weird way it manifested, so I'm pretty grateful to be as stable as I am. I've gotten down to the point where I can even travel, and most of the time I do okay. Like, going to Mexico was like, but it was okay. As long as I hold strict on my what I can and can't eat. There we go. So I'm adding a little bit of a harder shadow to this side, just again because the light is coming from the opposite side. Yeah, David's been sandwiching. He's doing grilled cheese and tomato soup for lunch a lot. Which is totally gluten and tomatoes. It's poisonous to ants and regular cheese. So yeah, it's like the lunch that is the antithesis. Hee. And it's terrible too because the grilled cheese smells so good. And I'm just like, oh, get it away from me. It's so terrible. Yeah, it's very, all those gut related stuff. It's all very complicated. Everybody's a little bit different, Shadow Raven. It's not easy, but I was lucky and I was able to mostly nail mine down with diet. I do feel that going on keto helped as well, low carb. I really, really do. Because it's a very anti-inflammatory diet. It's not for everybody, though, so I totally get people who just cannot do it. There we go. So we got some extra shadow. I'm just like working this whole area here to deepen shadows, deepen drama. I'm going to work with this. Now that this is a bigger area and it's flat, we're not going to paint it the same way that we painted this. Instead, I'm going to do it more traditionally where I'm adding in my shadows. So I am adding in that russet brown. I want to really bring in a lot of rust up on this piece because there's not a lot that's going to rub against this to keep it shiny. So they're really just going to be like little glints of shiny on it. And there's going to be a lot of weathering. A lot of weathering. So I'm browning out a lot of this gray with russet brown. And again, you want to make it kind of blotchy and irregular because that's the way that weathering would happen. Ah, yeah, if you're vegan. Well, actually, Yeah, vegan, I don't know the vegan stuff as well. But yeah, when you can't eat meat, like it means you're using beans and legumes for protein, right? I don't remember if vegans can have that though, or if you have to use synthetic food sources. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the diet very much. I know vegetarian, but I'm not. I'm very unfamiliar with vegan. Or can you do nuts and seeds for protein? I don't remember. Ah, you're no good with food prep. Yeah, I get it. I get it, lady. Yeah. I don't know. I stuck with it. I think I stuck with it because I had a very good friend who actually got me onto it, and we would chat every morning about the diet and about how we were feeling and about our results. And I think that really helped me stay on it because I always had Bridget there kind of to chat with about like, hey, I'm trying this. How is it working? And hey, I got a new recipe for blah, and this is awesome. Try it, you know. So yeah, but it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But yeah, I found my body reacted really well to it, and that was a big motivator for me. It's like I'm not on it now. I did 2.5 years because I think low carb is a better choice if I'm cooking for David as well. So, but I find I feel just as good on low carb, and it's not nearly as difficult to keep up with, lady. So if you feel like your body responded well to it, you might just try dropping your carbs down, not to keto level, but still dropping them, and see if you feel better. Because I'm probably doing about 50 grams of carbs. For me, that's not ketosis. Like for me to be in ketosis, I have to go down to 20. But 50 to 60 grams of carbs a day. Tops. All right, so now I'm just kind of bringing my gray in and I'm touching this up, hitting these little rivets so I don't forget them. No animal stuff. Ah, right. Yeah, beans. I actually stay away from beans for that reason. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's true. Some grains are high protein. Good point. Interesting. Yeah, whereas I have a very low grain diet. I do my oatmeal in the morning. Sometimes I will allow myself a piece of to go off diet and have a piece of whole grain bread if I really, really want one. But I can only have one, and I cannot have it every day. I've gotten very good at limiting myself without feeling deprived. All right, so my highlights, I want to be here on the bottom part of these eyes, just to bring that out, bring out the shape. But I might end up putting some rust in there too. So I need to watch it. I need to figure out where my highlights are on this. I am going to at least like kind of sketch in a few lighter areas, like around the eyes. Kind of the areas that would stick out a bit and might get rubbed up against stuff, which would be the skull face for the most part. But I also have to keep in mind where I want to put my rust effects. And those eyes are just like really a place where rust would pool because the water would pool in those deep wells. So, yeah, that's true. I like tofu and things, stir fry. I've cut down a lot on my meat. I definitely am lower protein than I was when I did keto. I have an egg in the morning. I have some smoked salmon for lunch, and then I have whatever protein a little bit of whatever protein we're doing for supper. So I don't do a lot of it. So bringing in some orange here. Gonna bring in some of my red as well. Remember we're using this awesome rusted anchor color. So I want to make my colors similar to what I've done down here. So I want that rusted anchor to be my main setup of my rust after my russet brown. So I want to bring that in. Remember, you want to be a blotchy. You do not want to necessarily be predictable. Both sides should not be symmetrical. Like maybe put a little bit extra rust on this side than on that side. A little bit of rust here, a little bit of rust there. Do leave some gray so that it still comes off as metal. Gonna get a little bit of rust here. not all of this would be, I think I'm going to add some rust here so that I can break up that skull outline a little bit, and a little rust here. There, I think that works. Oh, I love miso soup. So tasty. I used to make it. There was one winter, I think it was last winter, I made it like every day for like 2 months for lunch. So I just loved it. Gonna suggest a bit of a rust over here. And again, just kind of be, don't be symmetrical with it. Yeah, right. So now everything is, yeah, and it is warm, right? It's orangey, and we've got this red and this yellow going on. So especially with the rusted anchor being like a very close to our red shadow kind of color. So yeah, I think it's working pretty well. I'm with you on that, Carrie Michael. Oh yeah, Malaysia, tasty foods. I love Asian cooking in general. Indian food has a lot of really good vegetarian options, but it's also a lot of beans and lentils, and I don't usually go there, so I tend to avoid that part, but there's some good vegetarian dishes. All right, I'm going to bring up my orange a little stronger in areas. Wherever I feel like you'd get kind of the most rust pooling, the most water pooling, that's where your orange should go. So up against the edges of things, in this area here between these rivets and the skull, there'd probably be quite a bit of moisture caught. So putting some orange in there, totally fair. You don't want to lose your red though. It's very easy to lose when you're working with these little areas on these little models. It's very easy to lose your red and over orange. So I'm going to bring in my anchor, my rusted anchor, a little bit more here and there if I feel like I've really missed out. Like I've gone way too far the other direction. But it's getting there now. Yeah, yeah. And Asian fusion, I mean, Asian food doesn't typically have doesn't use a lot of allergens. I mean, unless you're doing Indian food, which does have tomatoes here and there, which is why I make it myself. But a lot of other, Asian cooking doesn't have, I mean, it's not really glutinous generally and other stuff. So it's really nice. I just love the flavors. Let's put a couple rusty, kind of like lighter orange bits here. Also, the finer you can get your brush stroke when you're stippling rust on, the more realistic of an effect you're going to get. And sometimes I definitely do have to mix some white with this orange to get it more opaque so that I can make the color show up at such a small scale. Which is what I did up here, is I mixed my orange with my white so that I got more of that coming in. Now I do want to bring up a little bit of scrapes and stuff. I haven't done any of the actual NMM highlighting and shading, which was kind of not. The reason I didn't is because I thought a lot of this would be covered over with rust, and it is. But now that I have a moment, I'm going to take my liner, my Rogue Shadow, come back in and redefine some of these shadows. Figure out where I want where my NMM shadows would show up and block some of them in. And then I'm going to pop a little bit of highlights here and there. You could use any of them. I mean, the oxides are actual, it's oxide. It's rust. It's red oxide. It is rust. It's based on rust. So the oxides are fine. I'm using rust and anchor because I really like kind of the synergy. It's kind of a synergy between those two colors, between the oxide red and brown. I like the combo. But I mean, you could start with brown and layer up with red, and then go to Cavalier Orange, and you'd be fine. Don't overthink rust colors. If it's a reddish brownish color or an orangish brownish color, you can use it for rust. It doesn't matter what it is. A lot of people get very stuck on the precise colors, but it's really not that important. Oxides have a wide range. And if you're putting like orange and brown and reddish brown on metals, people are going to read it as rust. Heck, even purple. Rust can even be purple or pink. There's lots of different oxidation reactions out there. And that's why you should never get too stuck on the colors to use. Bringing in a little bit of highlight here and there on this skull to make details come out. I would normally highlight the bottom edge a bit because the edge of this would be more likely to get the rust worn off of it. I'm starting with a light gray here to try to bring up some highlights down under. And that's pretty much coming up. Now I'm going to grab a little tiny bit of pure white and hit a couple pops. A couple of pop highlights. More or less. That looks pretty rusted over because I've covered over most of the surface. Isn't gray anymore. I'm going to bring up a little bit of my gray back. There we go. So that's working okay. I do feel like I got a little bit too clumsy there with those big patches of rust, but oh well. It is what it is. There. Yep, that's what I'm doing with the orange over the red here. Doing a search is always a good idea just because it gives you an idea. It gives you an example to hit for. I already had in mind what I wanted to do, so I didn't bother with an image search on this one. All right, let's see here. What haven't I done? There is a string around his neck that I did not do. The string that comes down from that collar, which I totally didn't highlight when I had my reds out. Dough. Well, let's grab a bit of russet brown for this cord here. But yeah, with rust and corrosion, you should always use pictures. And if you're on my Patreon, remember that I did a $10 level PDF a couple months ago called Colors of Corrosion, where I specifically talk about stuff like that, what colors to use. Just going to mix up some russet brown for the base coat and I'm going to drop in a little bit of driftwood for my highlights, which is something I enjoy doing. Mottled rust happens because it cakes up at different rates over surface, depending on where the water goes and the oxidation is. But yeah, sadly, with Secret Weapon no longer around, some of the best rust colors in the industry are no longer around as well. I'm just going to get this little cord painted real quick. And then I think we pretty much have base coating on everything. All we need to do is bring stuff up. I think I'll probably, maybe I'll highlight the skulls and do his teeths. Teeths. Can't believe I forgot his teeths. I'm gonna do them in kind of a brown first, because dirty teeths. Alrighty. So that brings his teeth kind of in line with the color of these skulls. I'm going to grab a good skull color. What have I got? How about Cairnstone? I kind of like this as a bone color. It's Pathfinder 89512. I like it in general as a color, so I'm going to mix up a puddle of it. Boop. Squeezed out rather a lot into my palette, sadly. Definitely didn't need all of that. I'm going to take some of it over to a separate well and thin it down a little bit more. So I've got this big, huge puddle here, which is still pretty strong because it has a lot of white in it. So I want to get it a little thinner. And actually drop a drop of white in. There we are. So Cairnstone is almost greenish, and that green tone doesn't come from green pigment. It comes from the interaction of yellow and black pigments. You get to the point when you're mixing paints that you totally can tell the difference. Huh. Yeah, I sure hope David gets his coughing under control, because he's supposed to go to Canada on a ski trip next week. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to go out there and hack around all of his friends and make them uncomfortable. Plus Canada. I don't want him to get stranded across the border. I mean, we managed to escape from Mexico. I don't want him to have to escape from Canada. And I'm adding in some of this Cairnstone on the bone there. I did a little bit here. I'm going to go up now and get these teeth. I'm going to mix it a little bit with my russet brown mix to start with, and then I'll go up to the pure Cairnstone. This is a nice brown, actually. I'm going to leave the darker brown at the bottom of the tusks, since they would be, the roots would be dirtier. This Pathfinder color is Cairnstone, one of the more unusual. It's kind of like that yellowy gray granite color. I love it. 89512. Do not underestimate the Pathfinder colors. They are mighty. Mostly I just want him to feel better. He's been sick for a while now. The plague does not let you go easily. So I want to get the edges. And focus the highlight toward the tips. And now we'll get down here. Pick up one highlight here, one highlight there. So now we've got a lot of that white color up here. Let's back out. Yeah, this is looking good. This is looking pretty good. I may bring in a few more kind of brownish tones on this cloth, this sailcloth, just to dirty it up a little bit more. Sometimes it's a little bit dirtier in person than it is on camera, but I want it nice and filthy. There we go, a little bit browner. This is a mixture of Cairnstone and the driftwood brown and russet brown mix that I made. Don't think you have to like load a new color into your palette when you're painting. If you look at your palette and you see that you could mix something close with colors that are already open, go for it. Video on purple. If you look on where you can search my keywords, Polly, I'm pretty sure I have. If you look up either keyword purple or keyword painting purple, there should be something there. But you can go, essentially, I think it's on the front page where you can search by keyword. I use keywords compulsively, and I have since the beginning of the Patreon, so it makes it very easy to search for topics. Or alternatively, if you're on my Discord, you can go and look at Margaret's list, what do we call it? It's essentially the Patreon directory. That's what it is. And the Patreon directory will take you through a lot. I'm about to do a Pentads thing on purples next month. But depending on what specific thing you're looking for as far as help is painting purples, I'm pretty sure I've covered purple at some point in the past. Because it is my favorite or second favorite color. It may have been in the course of doing a different tutorial, but we'll see. I don't remember. Alrighty. That's looking good. Let's get the skulls on. Oh, okay. Yeah, it won't let you link Robin. Yeah, I like using keywords. Thanks for the Patreon links and love. I do love my Patreon. I started working on that copper NMM triad yesterday. That'll be a PDF for the $5 tier. I figured out what model I was going to use for it. It's cute. It's a cute model, so be aware. There's going to be cuteness. Warning you. I know, total deal breaker, right? I also need to film my new $0 video, like free one. Okay, good. Excellent. Yeah, purple or painting purple. There should be one or both. Alrighty, let's get this Cairnstone mix and get it highlighting these skeleton skulls. These little human skulls, I should say. Skeleton skull is kind of redundant, Anne. I don't know. They are adorbs, yes. The tiny dragons are adorbs. Totally agree. That's why they're always sold out. Jean does cute really well. Alrighty, so just a little bit of highlight to bring this bone up. We don't want it to be too clean. So we may need to bring in a little bit more brown on it if you want it to look dirtier. Going to keep some pretty dark shadows here. It's really just a little pop of detail. It's not really an important thing for the model, so. And you don't want these to be too bright and distracting because you don't want to attract the eye too much away from this upper area. I think I still have one Rocky that I haven't put any paint on. I think it's the Flying Rocky. We'll use it for something at some point. Alrighty. So pretty much going up, grabbing my cairn stone straight up and hitting the jaw, the bones around the eyes are your first priority. And usually there's a bone coming in there, and then you got to hit the top of the head. You can hit the round of the back of the skull here, but you don't want to put much of a highlight here on the side of the skull. Just want to kind of blend stuff in. Most of your highlights should go around the eye sockets and just to bring out the shape of the skull. This looks like a monkey skull almost. It's very differently shaped. Could just be mold compression, but could also be a monkey skull. This skull has a T carved in its forehead. I need to sit down probably this weekend and figure out some new models for the stream here. Because we're almost finished with Darius. We're almost finished with Vitanus. We are almost finished with Bronze Golem. Yeah, we have 3 models that we are almost done with. And technically this one isn't far off. Like, if I chose to just kind of soft finish this ogre and not do him like up to the 9s, there's just a few things. Like I want to highlight the cords, the wood, and get the rim around this done. Oh, there's a little buckle back here that I didn't get. Could also do this in steel. Realize there's a little buckle back here. And there's another one on the side actually. Plus we haven't done these little studs. There we've got to question whether we're going to stick to all steel or throw in some like bronze or brass. For this model. Need to figure out who I'm going to put on Instagram today. Been trying to post up some models from this stream lately. Haven't actually posted up a picture of Ogre recently, so maybe I'll put up a picture of the Ogre. It's getting much closer to done. So really I'm just stippling some highlights on these skulls on the bone to keep it kind of dirty, but bring up the highlights where appropriate. And I am keeping some dirty brown tones on them. Again, stippling that in so that they still stay kind of grungy, Bone can get to looking very clean. So if you want it to stay grungier, you have to make the effort. Sagebrush, that's a hard... I mean, I've done it on this stream. We've finished models recently, or we've been finishing models. Mostly, the one thing I've been talking about with, I think we've been doing it on this guy, is the punch list. So, like, we've already actually done a video on doing it. I don't think I could actually do one for the Patreon, because doing the punch list on just Vitanis was at least 2 hours of work. So the best thing I could say is watch like the last couple videos on Vitanis. And he's actually, we're going to finish him tomorrow. But I'll show you what I mean. So like my list for finishing minis, I always do a list when I get down to the end. So the last push always has a defined end. Once I finish all those things, the model is done. But it can take me 2 hours to finish that. So I don't think it's really a good video subject. I don't think I could quite do it. But yeah, so we'll be working on this guy tomorrow. Getting him done, hopefully. I'm going to try. But yeah, I don't have lists of lists. The only time I make a list is when I'm getting down to the end. Like Ogre, it's almost time to make Ogre's list. Where I sit down and I look at the whole model and I make a finite list. And once that list is done, the model is done. So, but I only do that one list. Like up to that point, I'm just looking at the model and I can see what I need to paint. I think I am going to do these studs in, let's try them in steel. I think I need to add some water to my gray, and I also need to make a mix. Let's start with a darker gray. But yeah, like that's what my ending push for a model is all about, is looking at the model in detail, creating the list, just going head to toe and creating the list of all the little things that I need to do. Oh, there's ties there too I gotta do. See, this when you get to the outside areas of a model, it's so easy to overlook little things. Especially if it's not part of the main viewing angle. If you can't see it from the front or the back, like if it's on the side like this, it's very easy to lose it. And totally miss it until it's the end and you're like, what? What do you mean I missed straps that I had to paint? But yeah, when it gets down toward the end of the mini, and I always know because the mini looks more or less done, but there's still things to do, that's when I'll stop and make my list. We've done that on a couple of models now, I think. But Vitanis is the one I will say I point to because he is so complicated. He's got so many different things on him. So Vitanis is probably the best example of the push for me to finish a mini. Because I made my list and then I did add 1 or 2 things to the list as I discovered them. But otherwise the list has been pretty stable. Correct, sagebrush. And I only make that list once I get very close to done. Like this guy at this point, pretty close to done. Like there's just little things, like little details that need more attention. You know, the hair here I want to go a little bit more into. The collar I forgot to highlight. The wood needs to be done, right? I'm getting these little rivets right now. So yeah, it has to be really close. It has to be to the point where it looks close enough to done that I'm missing things. Like I keep overlooking maybe this little amulet here or something. That's where I find a list valuable. Like I'll just forget to do these little ties, or I'll just forget unless I make a list. And then I execute the list, and then I am done. And if in the process of executing said list, I discover more things, I will add them to said list. If I add too many other things, because for some reason I was blind the first time I made the list, then I will rewrite the list, and that will be the final list. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be here for Paint Club. Paint Club is going. We're gonna paint my giant Trollkin bust guy dude. I might do the metal. Like I'm pretty much blocking and everything, and then I'm gonna work organically to tune it all. So this might be we might do a giant metallic shoulder pad this week on Saturday. It's going to be on my channel, so that'd be twitch.tv/paintingbig at around 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time, Saturday Paint Club. Yeah, usually I'm flip-flopping back and forth between projects, so that happens naturally for me, Quantum. Although I do find it useful as the model nears completion to just keep a sticky note right next to me and make a note. If there's something where I look at it and I just know I'm not going to hit it within the next day or two, or the next time or two I pick it up, I make sure to make a note. Especially if it's little and pesky, where I feel like I might really, really miss it. But yeah, the fresh eyes thing is very useful with writing and with painting. Because when you've looked at it so long, you can forget a really obvious thing. And then facepalm and go, why did I forget this thing? And then do those little ties. Alrighty. I think Quiddy likes to grab her own people, Turgeon. I think she likes to cruise like a silent Quindy shark through the ranks of Twitch, letting her whimsy guide her. Though definitely go and give Michael some love if you, especially if you're interested in that goblin paint along. I just think of Quindy cruising like a silent Quindy shark through the Twitch. That amuses me greatly. Quindy Shark Mini. I figured. I thought. See, because yeah, I remember you telling somebody once that you preferred to make your own decisions on who we raid, which is totally cool because it's fun, right? You can go out and maybe find some new people, and I really enjoy it when we like raid people. I know John in the past has raided like 2D artists or digital artists, and I really like that too. So I like it when we raid some different people. So I am all for you cruising like a silent Quindy shark through the internets, finding new exciting places to raid. Yeah, exactly. Missing things. Quantum. And I am getting some of these little details finished out here on this bracelet. I did the little tie things now, so I didn't forget them anymore. They're done. We had a little extra time because I started late. Had a bit of computer update silliness this morning. Pottery is relaxing to watch. Like, it's so it's totally hypnotizing. It's very zen. I like watching digital painters because I'm like I'm a traditional painter, and I've played with my tablet, but I haven't like done a lot. And so I really enjoy watching the magic that other people can do with digital painting. I'm going to grab a little bit of my rust colors here and at least touch some of this silver. There's a lot of these silver details here, though, are very tiny, and so you really can't introduce a lot of rust discoloration, but you can do a little bit here and there. And also the rust is very close to the red here, so I don't want to do too much or it's just going to wash out. There. Works. All right. So what do we do? Yay, yay otters, indeed. So today we have done our rusted metal, both NMM chainmail and our big belt buckle. We touched up bone, we added his teeth, we worked with our whites and off-whites a little bit. We remembered, barely, to use our steel to bring out the studs and buckles on this lovely side cuff he's wearing, armored cuff. Really the only thing that's still white is the back of the shield here, which I hadn't decided whether I wanted to do it in bronze colors or in steel. We may come back and do it in steel just because of the contrast. Like I said, bronze would be very close to the skin color, which I did not immediately think of, but have thought of now. All in all, though, now we've just got like a bit more of the wood, like on the barrel here. We've got these sharp, jagged pieces to do, and this. Maybe some touch-ups on the back of the model, but otherwise, this guy's getting really close to done. Really, really close to done. There we are. One honkin'. Yeah, like that thing. Whatever you just said, Pendry. Too much effort. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope that you had a lovely time on the stream today. As mentioned, tomorrow we are going to be making hopefully finishing our final push on Vitanis here. His front is pretty much done. We just need to really finish up that gold trim on the cape and the flame, and we'll be there. I think we did almost everything else at this point. So yeah, and then just round out the basing, and he will be finished. We're finishing a lot lately. Pretty cool, actually. Ron, I'm sure, is happy. All right, everybody. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you again tomorrow for Friday. Friday is almost Friday. Yay. Bye, guys.